Om Namah Siddhebhyah. Jai Janendra friends. At the outset, I would like to thank the C.P. Ramaswami Aiyar Foundation for inviting me to deliver a talk here, particularly Nandita Krishna Madam and my Guru, Dr. Priyadarshana Jain Madam, for recommending me and enabling me to give this talk. With this, while we start, let's start with an invocation. Srimad Parama Gambira Syadva Damoga Lanchanam Jiya Trailokya Natasya Shasanam Jina Shasanam. Friends, we always start with an invocation, but why did I choose this particular invocation? It's because when it comes to the history of Jainism in Karnataka, there's a very popular saying, stones speak, Kallugalo Kategalanna heltave. That's how the stones tell a lot of stories. It's the inscriptions that tell the history of a region, his inscriptions and the manuscripts. And this is one of the most, 80% of your inscriptions in Karnataka go through these. This is a common hymn that is there across. So that's why I just started with this, which means it's a benedictory verse praising Jainism, stating that the Jina's doctrines, characterized by the subtle and the unfailing principle of Syadvada, that is the doctrine of conditioned predication, may eternally prevail across all the three words. So that is what it means. With this, we'll just start off. Friends, while I start speaking about history of Jainism in Karnataka, in 40 minutes of a state which has about 2,300 years of history with multitude of dimensions, it's really difficult. I tried to put through a framework. Let's go through all of them. Before we start, let's try to understand the geography over here. Without spending much time, as you look at it over there, we are surrounded by all the three states, that is 4 states, Maharashtra, Andhra, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and as well as on the coastal side. And also we have Goa. So having a look at this, let's start exploring the different regions, because we have about 31 districts. I've tried to give emphasis to maximum possible aspects over here. So when we look at this entire thing, when we look at the content, it has multiple dimensions to it. One is the background of Jainism in the background of the entire thing. How did Jainism enter Karnataka? And then the epigraphs, the roles of Jaina Munis and Bhattarakas, because Bhattaraka tradition has played a vital role in the history of Karnataka, and same thing in Tamil Nadu even to this day. Then we look into epigraphical evidences, that is the inscriptions. The Salekana memorial inscriptions, just a glimpse of it. It's just a touch and go. It's like a dipstick to give you a glimpse of the history and the vastness. Then we go into the interactions and onslaught on Jainism with the other religions. You will see a few examples. These are all live examples in terms of sculptures. Then we look at the literary influences. Everyone says, and that is very true, Kannada literature means Jaina literature means Kannada literature. That's how interconnected both are. Then we look at the royal patronage. When we are looking at each of these, what we are doing is we'll just look at a glimpse of the inscriptions and all, but when we get into the royal patronage, we'll try to understand very briefly contribution of some of the very important dynasties. We'll also look at some of the temples that they have built, so that you are able to clearly appreciate it time and again. Then the temples and monuments. And when it comes to the background, as we know, Jainism is definitely one of the earliest religions to flourish in Karnataka, spread across the region over a gradual migration through trade networks and movement of the ascetics. And traditionally, we all know, is associated with the migration of Bhadrabahu. Then one of the earliest establishments of Jainism in Karnataka is Shravanabelagola. Then due to all of this, Karnataka emerged to be one of the strongest strongholds of Jainism in South India. And how did it received a lot of support from the royal dynasties, and how it played a very key role in shaping the religion, the polity, literature, art and architecture of the state. And it also has a rich epigraphical background. So this is a quick background of the thing through which we will explore. Now, what are the sources of history of Jainism in Karnataka? There are two different set of sources. One is the epigraphical sources and the literary sources. When it comes to epigraphical sources, Karnataka is the state in the entire India having the maximum number of Jaina inscriptions. We have about 2,200 inscriptions. We'll have a quick glimpse of them. And right from Shravanabelagola, Koppala, Aihole, Moodbidri, everywhere you find inscriptions, records of Salekana memorials, and the records of the royal dynasties, their contributions, and then the inscriptions written in multiple languages. It's not just Kannada, Tamil, Vatteluttu scripts, Brahmi, Prakrit, Sanskrit, every other script you find. Then the literary sources, and the contribution of the different poets, the Ratnatrayas, we'll understand about that, and also the text in Puranic works. That's how we look at it. Now, when you look at the epigraphical sources, friends, like I said, we have about 2,200 inscriptions, of which 1,900 plus inscriptions have been published in Jaina Shasana Samputa by Hampi University in 5 volumes. Now it's getting translated to Hindi as well as in English. Some of the volumes are coming up now. Entire world will get to see the treasure of Karnataka's epigraphs in the next 3 years in other languages, and inscriptions from 5th century or 4th century onwards, and some of the oldest references are also seen. And what are the kind of epigraphs we come across? The Nishadis are the Salekana memorials, the Pada Shasanas, the feet impressions, and around that you find the epigraphs, the Kamba Shasanas, the pillar inscriptions, the details of temples, the Manastambas, the details of donations, details of the rituals performed. They say Haludari Abhisheka. Abhisheka in terms of Palu means what? Milk Abhisheka. Like this, multiple sources are there. The Dana and Datti Shasanas, that is the donation related inscriptions. Details of the ascetics, that is Sangha, Gana, Gacha, Anvaya. All of these are available. Now, just here's a quick glimpse of 1,000 out of 2,200, 1,805 inscriptions across Karnataka. How are they distributed? Look at this. This is a quick glimpse of entire Karnataka. Over and above this, you add about 10% to each of these. That adds up to 2,200 inscriptions. This gives you a quick glimpse of how vast the epigraphical corpus is in entire Karnataka. Okay. Now, next, moving on. When it comes to the entry of Jainism in Karnataka, it's a very, very interesting thing. You will be mesmerized to know this. We all know about Bhadrabahu Muni and the arrival of Jainism, with Bhadrabahu Muni coming down south with 12,000 of his followers, and due to famine in the North India, that is one very popular thing. But it happened in 297 BCE, but it was documented in an inscription after around 800 years, which is about 600 CE. That's one side of it. Next, what happens is Shvetambara sect. When did it come? Because we should look at the entire Jainism. It's not just Digambara, it's all about every other sect. When it comes to Shvetambara, evidence of Shvetambara sect's existence goes back as 1st century CE in Malakheda, through one of the works mentioned by Haribhadra about the visit of Padaliptacharya. Then when it comes to another very interesting thing is, we have seen about the Shvetambara idols, the Digambara idols differentiation, but you will be mesmerized and amazed to see this, hear this. 459 CE, during the 4th renal year, Mrigeshavarma Kadamba king's inscription says, the Digambaras, Shvetambaras were all worshipping a common Jina idol, Digambara idol. When did the Shvetambara worship start? That's a different thing. It's an art and architecture course discussion, but trying to tell you, Shvetambaras also worshipped the Digambara idols in 459 CE. And it continues. Then, after that, the Yapaniya sect comes. When did the Yapaniya sect start? That's always a matter of debate. To tell you, it was founded somewhere in Karnataka itself, 2nd century CE, in Bidar district up north. Okay? Then, it was founded by Sri Kalasha at Kalyana as per Darshanasara work, and then it continues. The same Mrigeshavarma in his 8th renal year, he says, grants were made for the Yapaniya Munis for their well-being during the Chaturmas, during the monsoon season. So that's about the 3 sects and their entry into this thing, Karnataka. And inscriptions are, you just saw about the brief about the inscriptions. Now, as and when it is relevant, I'll try to insert the inscriptional aspects, because we have to connect all the dots. When it comes to inscriptions distribution, just to give you a glimpse, only in Shravanabelagola, out of 2,200, Shravanabelagola has 21% of the inscriptions. 421 inscriptions in Shravanabelagola, ranging from 6th or 4th century CE to 19th century, of which, just imagine, 270 inscriptions in Shravanabelagola are all Salekana memorial inscriptions, which are called as Nishadis. What kind of royal families are they related to? Rashtrakutas, Gangas, Kalyana Chalukyas, Hoysalas, Vijayanagar kings, Mysore Odayars, Chengalvas and Kongalvas. These are all the royal families whose inscriptions were there in Shravanabelagola. And now let's look into the role and influence of Jaina ascetics. When it comes to 3rd century BC, we all know about the arrival of Bhadrabahu coming down south, and then which is indicated through a Sanskrit inscription. That's one side of it. Then we have what kind of interesting details it gives us. It gives us details about Acharya Parampara, about Acharya Kundakunda and his lineage. We get details about Acharya Umaswati and his lineage. We have details about Acharya Pujyapada at Kanakagiri and his Guru Parampara. Then we go on other Acharyas, Devanandi, Samantabhadra. So all this clearly says what exactly was the entire lineage of these ascetics. We are able to get to as back as from 3rd century BC, and it continues. Then what interesting, very, very interesting details. We just heard Chitra ma'am also speaking about the Sangha, Gana and Gachas. So what are the kind of categorizations you see in the entire this thing, the Sangha, the topmost thing, then the subdivision Sangha, Gana, Gacha, Anvaya, Bali, Vibhava. These are the subdivisions. As we move on, and it is also, how was it attributed? Where did it originate from? Look at this. Look at the names of different Sanghas. Moola Sangha, Nandi Sangha, Dravida Sangha, Yapaniya Sangha, Sena Sangha, Naviluru Sangha. Of all of these, Moola Sangha has been mentioned the most. Gana, Sandvika Gana, Desi Gana, Balatkara Gana, Dravida Gana, Kanuru Gana, Kranuru Gana, Kalogra Gana. Look at the names. It clearly gives you a different gradation, different categorization of the ascetichood, right? As we move on, then we look at, among all of them, Desiya Gana or Deshiya Gana was used the most. And when it comes to Sanghas, Moola Sangha, then again Gacha, Pustaka Gacha, Postaka Gacha, Vakra Gacha, Trintrini Gacha, Saraswati Gacha, Karuru Gacha. Among all of these, Pustaka Gacha is the most popular. Then Anvaya, Kundakunda Anvaya, that is the tradition of the Acharya Kundakunda. Chitrakoota Anvaya, Arungalanvaya, Sridharanvaya, Naviluru Gudanvaya. So like this it continues. Then Bali, Inguleshwara Bali. Inguleshwara is a city, is a small place in northern Karnataka, up north, where you see the Bashveshwara movement had started, right? Adjacent to Bhagyavadi. Then you come down south, adjacent to Mysore, there is a place called Panasoge, Chikka Hanasoge, that is what it is, Panasoge Badi. Then Vibhava, Bodha Vibhava, like this multiple things. This clearly helps us understand what exactly were the gradations of the different monkhood. Then 5th century inscriptions, they also indicate about multiple other things, about like what we just saw, the Digambara, Shvetambara being in coexistence, those kind of very interesting inscriptions. Then what was the role played by these monks? So very quickly, when it comes to the foundational phase, the Acharya Bhadrabahu's arrival, then Chandragupta Maurya, then Kundakunda, Acharya Kundakunda, 2nd to 3rd century BCE, it continues. Then Vishakacharya coming down to Tamil Nadu. That is one side of it. Then Acharya Simhanandi Acharya, he played a very vital role in the formation of Ganga Empire. Then Acharya Pujyapada, we know the neighboring districts, very bordering district to Tamil Nadu, the Chamarajanagar district. Then Acharya Samantabhadra, his Bhadra, and then Acharya Akkalanka, like this it continues. Acharya Jinasena, he was a scholar in the Rashtrakuta court. Then major works, each one of them have contributed. It's not just they existed, they also contributed immensely to the literature. He wrote works like Adi Purana, the life of Rishabha, Acharya Gunabhadra, then Acharya Veerasena, it continues. Nemichandra Siddhanta Chakravarti, very important role. Very important role in the, he was the guru of Chavundaraya. He was the first pontiff of Shravanabelagola. It continues, and he also wrote Gommatasara. Then, along with this, what happens is gradually the Bhattaraka tradition started emerging. Bhattara means it's just a honorific name. The Bhattaraka traditions at Hombuja, HCE, Sonda, the same Munis became Bhattarakas, were made Bhattarakas, that is nothing but your Bhatta Akkalanka, that is Akkalanka. Then Nemichandra Siddhanta Chakravarti was the initial pontiff of Shravanabelagola, later on it became a Charukirti seat. And the Moodbidri Bhattaraka is again called as Charukirti, and Karkala called Lalita Kirti. This is the Bhattaraka tradition. What did they do? They were the ones who were the custodians, who were the religious gurus, who guided the people being stationed at a particular place. Then, in short, if you look at it, Bhadrabahu, sacred migration, then Kunda philosophical foundation, Akalanka intellectual defense, Nemichanda Siddhanta Chakravarti, the doctrinal systematization, and Bhattaraka's institutional continuity. That's how I would like to summarize the entire role of ascetics and Bhattarakas. Then the Salekana memorials, very quickly, Salekana memorials are called as Nishadis. In Karnataka, I have surveyed nothing less than 500 to 600 plus Salekana memorial inscriptions. Shravanbagala has around 270 Salekana inscriptions. It is called as the capital of Salekana, capital of the world. Okay? And Koppala is another place up north. It has 70 inscriptions. Friends, you will not believe. The fort wall had fallen down in 1991-92. When they looked at the wall and they looked at it, 70 to 75 inscriptions were found. All of them were Salekana inscriptions. You can imagine how vast the Salekana inscriptions are. Then you come to Dharwad district, 40 Nishadis. In Haveri district, one of the research scholars, just in 3 days field work, across 500 village survey, he found 40 to 50 Salekana inscriptions. That's how Salekana was practiced across the state. That is again a part of our rich history of Karnataka and Salekana. Other districts you see, Mysore, Chamarajanagar, Coorg, any part of Karnataka, you name a district, we have Salekana memorials. You move on, Nishadis at Shravanbagala, like I said, it has from 400 CE to 14 CE. And what kind of people? Ascetics, Muni, Mataji or Aryaka, and then the people from the royal families, Raja, Rani, the Mantris, the householders, Shravaka, Shravika, everyone. Among all of them, the smaller hill, what you see, has the bulk of the inscriptions, then the smaller, then the bigger hill. Like I said, out of 421 inscriptions, 271 are Salekana memorial inscriptions. That is the remarkable point. Friends, this is a very important inscription. You know, anything in the form of a kamba is called as, pillar is called as a kamba. Salekana memorial is called as a nishadi, and it is within a mantapa. So it is a very good example of, this is the oldest example of a kamba and a mantapa nishadi. You know what? This is the inscription of a person who is a Rashtrakuta king called as Indra IV. You believe it or not, it gives very interesting details about his conquest. It also gives details about his skills in playing the game polo. Look at the kind of details you get it, right? Then you move on. This is, you all go to Coorg, you do the field work, you just do the touring and you come out, right? There's a very, you get in touch with me, I'll tell you, there's a place called Mullur, very nicely protected monument by ASI, group of 10 inscriptions, they are kept over here. Look at this, just to give you a glimpse of it. You have when you have a Muni would be preaching. If they don't have, you have a Muni directly, and below that you have them with folded hands. They are undertaking Salekana. So these are the kind of inscriptions we found. Then yesterday, things came about Shantala. How did Shantala undertake Salekana? Her mother, her brother, her guru, everything is available at this inscription at Shravanabelagala. That is how rich the history of Salekana tradition is at Shravanabelagala. And as we move on, look at this. This is a very beautiful thing. One family, 9 members, including a general in the Vijayanagar kingdom. His general name was Sangama. Sangama Salekana memorial inscription of 1396. He undertakes his family members, everyone. It's a series, one after the other. One inscription. Look at how beautiful it is. Whenever I do a separate presentation on Salekana inscriptions, I have this particular sculpture. That is my header. This is one of my most loved inscription because of its sculpture, the kind of details it has. That is how vast it is, and that is the kind of sculptures you see. That is the depth of Salekana and its practice and Jainism that it was. You can just imagine the Jain way of life that existed in Karnataka in that part of the centuries. And you would all know about Bhatta Kalanka, the Swadi Jain Mutt. At one place, 20 inscriptions, 20 Salekana inscriptions are found here. Then when it comes to Jain literature, like I said, Kannada literature is without Jain literature, and Jain literature cannot be separated. It has been supported by all the royal families, Kadambas, Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas and Hoysalas. And the earliest cultivators of Kannada were Jains. Jain authors initiated translations and transition from oral to written format. Gunabhushita Muni's inscription and multiple other things also say the Halmidi inscription. Everywhere in literary way, inscriptions, or through these Shravanbegala inscription, all of these contributed richly towards the literature. And Jaina Yuga, Kannada literature is called as, the golden phase of Kannada literature is called as Jaina Yuga, not Kannada Yuga. It is Jaina Yuga. You can imagine how rich Jaina contribution was towards literature. Then it was completely patronized by every other royal families. The Rashtrakuta king Amogavarsha, he himself was a author. Then we have Western Ganga and Rashtrakuta courts. Everywhere we had patronization of Kannada literature, and they were all Jains. And the first extant Kannada prose, you will not believe, the prose or the prosaic work you say, right? It is called as Vadda Radhane. The oldest Kannada prosaic work is again by a Jain. You can imagine how rich Jainism is in terms of Kannada literature. Then they also pioneered in terms of epic poetries, poetics and prosodies, grammars, lexicography. You name a form of literature, name a form of grammar, Jains have contributed towards Karnataka. This is all part of Karnataka's Jain history. The Champu style was originated by Jains. Okay? Then the three gems, Ratnatraya, we say, Pampa, Ranna, Ponna. Pampa wrote Adi Purana and Vikramarjuna Vijaya. Adi Purana is Agama, this is Laukika. Bedaguvenalli, illi Jinagamam, alli Laukikamam, he says. Both for your personal well-being and at the same time for your spiritual well-being. Both of them were written by Adi Kavi Pampa. Then you go on, Ponna, he authored Shanti Purana. And Shanti Purana, then you have Ranna, Ajita Purana. So, all of these were all part of the creations of the Jaina authors. That's how important it is. Then, who are the other Jain scholars? Friends, because of the paucity of time, I'm not going through the details, I'm just running through things. We can always connect offline. Sri Vijaya, Nagavarma 1 and 2, Nagachandra, Janna, the popular Yashodhara Charita, what you see in the Prakrit works, it was written in Kannada by Janna. Then Bhattakalanka Deva, they continued. And many philosophical and ethical works, philosophical aspects, Ahimsa, Aparigraha, Satya, all of these were touched upon in the works. It continued. Works such as Adi Purana, Mallinatha Purana, they explore the things about karma, the impermanence of life, the self-realization of your soul. All of them are clearly given. As we move on, institutional and cultural contributions, it continues. They also contributed towards the creation of Shrutas, that is Shruta Bandaras. Manuscripts were done, they were written, they were preserved. What they used to do was like in a hall like this, someone used to dictate and the rest of the students used to write it. That's how they used to create multiple copies of this. And one of the works, they created 1,000 copies of that and they distributed. Even now, printing 1,000 copies book is really difficult for us. Funding and multiple things. But that is how they did. That's how Jains did. They contributed to the heritage of Karnataka. And Pampa is always called as the Adi Kavi, paralleling Valmiki in the Sanskrit tradition. And Shaiva and Vaishnava poets also praised Pampa. Without Jaina, this thing, nobody can move ahead in Karnataka. Then, that is why it is called as Jaina Yuga. Then, in short, the evolution of Kannada literature cannot be separated from Jainism. Earliest inscriptions to the classical epics, everything has a touch of Jainism. Their vernacularization of the Jaina philosophy did not just transform the literature, it also transformed the way of life of people. As one of the modern scholars says, the Gen Zs, you say, right? They say this because we say we need to give importance to Gen Zs. AI, Gen Z says, to write the history of Kannada literature is, in essence, to narrate the history of Jaina literary genius in Karnataka. That is what even the Gen Z say. Now, it's not about what the seniors say. Now it's about the Gen Zs. Gen Zs are saying this. Okay? Interactions and onslaught of other religions. Hold your breath. Very important. I'll go slow with this. 12th, 13th century. There happens to be a discussion, debate between the Jains and the Shaivas. There was a guy called Ekanta the Ramaya. He wins the debate over Jains. and he would have given the right to do anything what he wants. And finally, you look at this, what he's doing. Look at him. Munis are holding kamandals in their hand. They are raising their hand. They are telling, stop, don't hit. Still, they are hitting him. They are stamping over the Jains. See here, a Tirthankara idol or a Muni's idol is being cut, is being hit with a hammer. This is how it is. This is culturally represented at Abbaluru. This is 12th and 13th century. Even now it is done. I've watched this particular sculpture and I've taken a photograph just for the sake of discussion. Look at this. Finally, after all of this, he goes and does a puja of the Shaiva. That is how bad it was, and it is said that Ekantadaramaya took a vow that for next 3 years, I will not have food without doing the Shiracheda of a Jaina idol. For 3 years, for close to 900 to 1,000 idols, he smashes. That is the onslaught that is in north. And as we go in the same temple, you see this is just a window. You see small panels here. Those panels, if you expand, look at this. A Muni's or a Jina being chopped off. Muni's, this thing has been, they're putting a sword in their this thing. And look at this. These are all there. And finally, after all of this, a Vijayapatra has been given to him. This is the treacherous thing how Jainism has gone through in northern Karnataka. Then you all come to Shravanabelagola. You go to this, almost most of you would have gone to Shravanabelagola. You go along this side. Where my cursor is there, right? Here, if you go, this inscription is there. This is called as Bukkaraya inscription. We all spoke about the Vijayanagara kings. The Vaishnavas and the Jainas happened to have a tussle. On the Shravanabelagola hillock, a person called as Bhuvi Shetty was sleeping. They tried to murder him. He resists, and finally they go to Bukkaraya, the Vijayanagar king in Vijayanagar. Finally, there was a sandhi or a final discussion was done. They come to conclusions, and finally an inscription was laid. This is the inscription. And then look at this. This is 2 copies of that inscription are there. This is another inscription at a village called Kalyan near Bangalore. So this inscription was in this stage. It was being restored to this stage. Just I deliberately put this, friends. Anyone interested in epigraphy, conservation and all, look at this. This equipment, what you see, this is about 1.1 crore with the Mythic Society of in Bangalore. They do this and they digitize. Look at the precision. 0.01 millimeter of precision in terms of epigraphical research. The Mythic Society has done this. These are 2 copies of the same inscription. Next, look at this. This has not been exposed to the external world. This is somewhere in Gulbarga region where I have been there. I and my father, we had been on a field work in December. Look at it. Here, a Muni's head has been done, has been chopped off, and you see the Shaiva, this thing, right? And again over here, see there, they're chopping off the head and they're holding it on this thing like a Utsava, and they're going. So this is the kind of onslaught that Jainism had to go through. Then look at this. This is, you all know about Bijapur or Vijayapura. You go to Gulgumbas, you come out. There's a very close by, there's a place called as Malinatha Basadi, and that temple was asked to be destroyed by a Muslim, this thing, Malik Kafir, very popular name in the history, and finally that has been converted into a mosque. This is what it is. These are all images which are as fresh as less than 2 months. This is all based on my field work. Moving on, another very important thing, despite all of this is a very interesting concept. Not many of the scholarly people outside Karnataka know this. We have the concept of Yakkoti Jinalaya or Jogobottige Jinalaya. Means to say, despite all these onslaughts, the Shaiva gurus or the Shaiva matas used to support Jaina temples. Jaina pujaris were still there. And it continues. And those are called as Yakkoti Jinalayas or Jogobottige Jinalayas. There is a separate book on that in Kannada. Okay? And this is the temple that was in ruins. We have got this temple renovated. This is my discovery. This is a published inscription. Within this, we had this idol, we got it out, and we came across this interpretation. This is about Hoysala period inscription. What you see my cursor here. Here we found an inscription which says Javalige Yakkoti Jinalaya or something. Means to say, this is again a Yakkoti Jinalaya that was preserved. I just give you 5 different examples. The reason that I gave you this is, across Karnataka there are about 200 to 250 temples with epigraphical records I have that have been converted to Hindu temples. It's all part of history, not for or against anything, just trying to give you some of the facts of history. Namadari Gaudas, you know when Vishnuvardhana, Bitti Deva, he became Vishnuvardhana. Vaishnavas, Nama, the vertical, Nama. Nama Dharana. Gaudas, the Gaudas are nothing but the tiller of the land. Nama Dhari Gauda. They are called as Namadhari Gaudas. There are about 45,000 people in entire Mysore district. Of them, now around 4 to 5,000 of them, they are getting back to Jaina. This thing, 3 temples have been constructed in the HD Kote Taluk of Mysore district, bordering the Wayanad region. Then quickly, I'll skim through further fast now. These are the kind of royal dynasties. Everything, whatever I'm speaking, is based on epigraphical references. Nothing is outside proof. Each one of them, you come to me, somewhere or the other, I'll give you a proof. These are all the kind of royal dynasties from the period when did it start and when did it end. Their period, when did their patronage start, when did their patronage end, based on epigraphical sources. This is the quick snapshot of how royal families, big dynasties, small feudatories, Alupas, everyone, Palegaras, they have all supported. Quickly, the Western Gangas, we all know, they are the oldest among the royal families, 350 CE. Simanandin Acharya established the thing and they continued. And they were one of the pioneers to establish Jainism in Karnataka. And the oldest, one of the oldest, you will not believe, the temples were wooden, then brick, then stone. That is how the temples were. To tell you some of the very interesting things, you will not believe, a temple called as Tirthada Basadi, Pattada Jinalaya. You don't see Pattada Shivalaya, you don't see Pattada Vishnu temple, whereas the Pattada Jinalaya means to say the main temple worshipped by the Jains, kings, was by the Gangas. We find Patta Jinalayas. There were 3 to 4 Patta Jinalayas were there. That was part of my MA dissertation work. We were able to clearly establish that. Okay, and as we move on, like I said, Western Gangas were not merely patrons of Jainism, they were the primary architects of Jainism. They set the base, they set the tone, based on which the superstructure was built. Starting from 350 CE to 1280, 1180 or 12th century, complete. It was the Gangas supported Jainism. And here are some of the things. Look at this. This is at near Hampi, or about 100 kilometers or 80 kilometers from Hampi, a place called Kogali. What you see my cursor here, this is the oldest Sarvato Bhadra Jinalaya in Karnataka, 6th century CE. This was a temple with 1,000 inscriptions. Now it is a cowshed. 1,000 pillars were there. Now you can find hardly 40-45 pillars. Everything is thrown away. People have used it in their houses. I was here on December 25th last year. And some of these Kogali related idols are also found in your Egmore Museum, Chennai. If you go there, try to see this. If you want, I can even share the details. Kogali's inscriptions are found in, idols are found here at Chennai. Moving further, this is just a 57 kilometers or 60 kilometers from Bangalore. This is one of the high-raised temples with around 20 feet high, 17-pillared temple called a Sri Vijaya Jinalaya. And now, you know, this has been registered and given very recently in the media to a person who is a localite, is a non-Jain. Very soon this will go to history. He is looking at demolishing this. One of the very high-raised Ganga temples. Okay, and then this is near Mysore, 5 kilometers from Mysore, outskirts in Varuna. This is another vestiges. I have done multiple field works over here, all of these sites. Then Aretipur. This is the most happening site from a Jaina art, architecture and everything over there. Look at this. You come across this. These are rock bed boulders. You want to water this thing. You go up. These are the things. You'll just look at this. Look at how it was. These are all the kind of idols you get to see even now. These are all the Salekana memorial inscriptions that you find. And look at how the archaeological work is done. No JCBs. No devices or something that is used for, that will damage your thing. It's all human intervention. Women are put to work like this, men are put to work like this. These are the kind of inscriptions you find at thing. These are the kind of artifacts. Remains of 12 Jain temples were found here at Aretipur. These are all, the reason I'm showing this is, look at this, these are all brick temples. Gangas, I said, were the pioneers. First and foremost, the brick-based temples started from Gangas. That is what you see here. And as you come here, Kambadahalli, Panchakuta, 5 sanctum sanctorums, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Among this, you know what? 1, 2, 3, we can discuss later on. A single temple having pinnacles of Nagara, Dravida, Vesara. Can you imagine? Single temple having all the 3 different architectural styles. You find it at Kambadalli, these 3. That is the uniqueness of this particular temple. And originally it was a Trikuta. Later on they made 2 more kutas, so it became a Panchakuta. And you see here, outside this what you see here, my cursor, this is the thing. So this is again an architectural experimentation Gangas did, which is called as a Dvarashala. Okay? As we move on, these are all the different things of Panchakuta Basadi. And look at this, Sri Balipita, again an artistic form. Square, octagonal, circular and a dome, everything in a single this thing with all the, you know, here, all these 8 are there, right? It has all the 8 Dikpalakas. They are all carved over here. Okay? And as you move on, these are all the iconographical aspects over there. And you speak about Vitanas, you go to Kambadalli. This temple where my cursor is here, you have this kind of Vitana. This is also a Vitana temple. In between you have the Tirthankaras and you have Ashtadikpalakas. Every other experimentation you see by the Gangas. Then Chandragupta Basadi, oldest temple in Shravanabeлагola, 7th century. It was a Kashta Jinalaya. Kashta means wooden temple. It fell down. It was worn out. Then they made this particular temple. You know what? Look at this. Out of 3, you see only 2 shikaras are there. Other 2 does not have anything. Why is it called Chandragupta Basadi? Chandragupta Maurya, when he came down south, after Bhadrabahu's Samadhi or death, he undertook Salekana at this place, is what is the belief. That is why it is called as Chandragupta Basadi. And these are all the carvings about Bhadrabahu's arrival, what Nita ma'am also mentioned yesterday. The arrival of Bhadrabahu, the entire set of sculptures are seen here. Then the Chaundaraya Basadi, you know, you speak about Shikara Baddha temples. Temples with Shikaras, of course, but even within the Shikara having a temple in both the floors, that is what it is. This is one of the best examples. And some of you people might know Shadakshar Shettar, SS Shettar sir. He used to say, I'll see, look at this, 2 stories are here. Okay. Now, look at this. Looking at some of these sculptures, he used to say, we Indians are no less than anything. These are much better than Mona Lisa. These are all the masterpieces of Indian temple architecture. That's how he used to just compare, so that to draw people's attention. And these are all the other temples over. Look at this. The first floor of the same temple, again you have a temple. So that is why it is called as a Shikarabadda temple. Similar kind of Shikarabadda temples are at Moodbidri and as well as at Hombuja. And as we move on, we all know Shravanabeлагola Bahubali, don't have to say anything, but important thing, friends. People from Maharashtra might be here, people from Tamil Nadu are here, people from Karnataka are here. You know, here, trilingual inscription is seen at a single place. Chaundaraya Madisidam, Chaundaraya Shaivittan, Tamil, Chaundaraya Karaviyale. Trilingual inscription is seen over here. And in fact, that's a matter of debate, but still, many of historians from Maharashtra are of the opinion that this is the oldest Marathi inscription in the world. Okay, next, the Bharata, on which we say Bharata Desha is there, the oldest sculpture of Bharata. And then this is again, this is not a Manastamba. I'll come to this is the Brahmastamba. We'll come to that. Yeah, I'll make it fast. And this is the oldest Gajalakshmi idol by the Gangas. Then the Kadambas, one of the, again, they continued up north. They did not monumentalize Jainism. They made it grow possibly by laying its earliest things. The oldest surviving, second oldest surviving Jain temple is at Halsi. It is undergone renovation. This is the old image. And this is the Kama Jinalaya. This was found in 1970 to 1972. Excavation was done and it was found. What does Kama mean? Kama Jinalaya means it is nothing but Bahubali. Manmata Purusha, Kama Purusha, nothing but Bahubali temple. Okay? And you see here, none of you would have heard about this place called as Devagiri. You have heard about Shravanabeлагola, some of you would have heard about Koppala. This was in the middle of both of them, somewhere near Haveri district. This was again a chief Jaina center. It was the Adi Kadamba center, ruled by the Adi Kadambas, which is a chief Jaina center. Then Chalukyas, again they supported Jainism like anything, particularly in the up north, Gulbarga region, and some part of even Andhra Pradesh. You see a lot of Chalukya temples. And it was a very crucial transitory phase. If you go there in terms of architecture, that itself requires about 3 hours of study for each of these royal families. And the Aiyar and caves, the earliest experimentation of iconography in Karnataka happened over here. Then the Meguti temple, we heard about it yesterday. This is also one of the Shikarabadda temples. The top Shikara doesn't have anything. Then you go to Badami, this second oldest, 7th century CE. But you know, architecture keeps on growing. We say it's part of this thing. This is the cave. All of these are one part of it. You know where my cursor is here. This is what? This is Nishadi Salekana memorial inscription of 11th century. 7th to 11th century, 4 centuries, 400 to 500 years, this has been a growing architecture over there. Again, Ammanagi is another place in Belagavi district. Again, this is another good example. Through the Shikara, you are able to say, through the Kadamba Nagara Shikara, you can call it as the Kadamba temple, based on epigraphical sources. Lakkundi, another important example over there. Shankajinalaya, this is a very matter of debate. This is a combination of both Kadamba, initially, later on the Kalyani Chalukya support. It has a Sahasrakuta idol over there, one of the very old Sahasrakuta idols, about 9th century CE. Then Kamala Basadi in Belagavi, again this is another very good example of the Chalukya architecture. This is how it looks during night, when lit during the night. Look at the beauty. Yes, I have done all the lighting and everything of this particular temple. And as you move on, Atnur, this is another Chalukya temple. Then the Rashtrakutas, it continues. The Jaina Narayana temple, which we spoke about yesterday, this is the actual image of the Jaina Narayana about the Vasudevas. I'll make it faster. Then this is again not a very popular temple, which is again a Trikuta temple, which is in its ruins, but a very ancient temple in Belagavi district, again related to the same dynasty. Then Bidar up north, Kamtana Parshvanatha. This idol was below. The temple was, you know, below the ground feet. It was a basement temple. It was brought up now. Okay, and this is again another Panchakuta Basadi. Here when you go, it is a Trikuta, 4th and 5th. Panchakuta. Okay. Then this is another temple of the Chalukyas, just Kalyani Chalukyas, trying to give you a diversity of the architecture and the history of Jainism here. Gonka Jinalaya, it was the chief center of the Jaina ascetichood and the monkhood. Again, Aminabavi, you know, this idol was supposed to be smuggled. It was caught in the Bombay port during the pre-independence period. Okay. And Belagavi district, Ainapur, Disahasrakuta, again, 12th, 13th century. The Gokak. So, Hoysadas, down south, again, back to your Belur, Halabid side. All star-shaped architectural floor plans. Very good patronage to Jainism. But of course, Vishnuvardhana changed over to Vaishnavism. But still, they also supported Jainism like anything. And still, though being in south, up north, up to Dharwad, they went and supported a Jain temple. That's how vast their patronage of Jainism was. This is a very interesting thing. You all heard about Nilanjana, Nritya Prasanga. This is probably one and only ancient sculpture in the world over here. Trikuta Basadi at Chikka Hanasoge. You see the Trikuta, this is the ground plan. As you go inside, look at this. This is the Adinatha, and you see this? You see my cursor here? This is what? This is the dancing posture of Nilanjana. Where can you find such marvels? That is the beauty of Karnataka and the history of Jainism in Karnataka. And Shantinatha temple at Nittur. You will be mesmerized. We went there just 15 days back with Priya ma'am. You know, each and every thing, 1, 2, 3. If you look at this, the Trikala Tirthankara, 72 Tirthankaras being carved over there with all their celestial beings, multiple aspects of Jaina art and architecture are seen at this particular temple. And then look at this, the Vitanas. Center, you find this thing. Yes, sir. Yeah, and the Halabid temple. So it's going on. So just trying to give you a glimpse of these things. The Halabid temples, the Parshvanatha Basadi, Shantinatha Basadi, Adinatha Basadi, 3 different temples. And here you also find the Jaina Saraswati idol, about 12th century CE. And Shravan Bagada Akkana Basadi. One quick thing, as you come here, look at this. Padmavati, Dharnendra, look at their iconography. The Dharnendras, his Vahana, Padmavati's Vahana, all of them are clearly depicted here. That's the kind of depth you get it. Then the Santaras of Hambuja, that is again where the Yakshi cult started, 6th to 8th century. You have seen some of these inscription images yesterday. And this is the originally oldest Panchakuta Basadi in Karnataka. Okay, and as we move on, the Vijayanagar, I'm coming down, sir. I'm coming to 19th century. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. So in the Vijayanagar, again, they supported. This is the one of the only two Dvikuta temples in Karnataka. You find it at Hampi. And then this is one more. Though this is the 14th century, though the Kadambas rule moved early on, ended earlier on, they continued the structure. This is the Kadamba Nagara Shaili. Then it continues. And the Moodbidri, you have seen this. This is again a Shikarabadda, 2 floors above. It continues. So this is the thing. One small, very interesting thing. This is one of the rarest of the rare idols you can see anywhere in the world, friends. This. All the 24 Tirthankaras are made out of clay. They have been painted with natural colors as per the Jaina Puranas, whatever is the color of the Tirthankara. They are all painted in natural colors, vegetable and plant extracts. What you see here, I mean, sir should have been there. Here, this is the second Padmavati idol with her Parivara. Nowhere ever you find. Only 2 idols of Padmavati with her Parivara is seen, and this is one more. Even Kshetrapala or Sarvana, everything is made out of clay. These are again clay idols at Moodbidri. And it continues. And this is the Gerosappa you have all seen. You have heard about Chennabhaira Devi yesterday. But this is, someone mentioned about the hero stones. Look at the hero stones. This is one of my discoveries at that particular place. I published this inscription. And this is where I trekked around 18 kilometers up and down, up their fortress. People just go to Gerosappa and come. I trekked almost 18 kilometers up and down, and we found this. This is in the middle of 350 acres of fortress, which are in ruins right now. And we look at this. These are, you know, what are these? These are all Veeragallus, hero stones related to Jainism at Kaikini, very close to Gerosappa. So these are all this is the beauty of Jainism in Karnataka. Last thing, Chengalvas and Kongalvas near Mysore. This is again a 15th, 16th century Bahubali idol, one of the latest Bahubali idols in Karnataka. Then the Mysore Wadiyars, very interesting. You come to Shravanbagala, you see this Kalyani, right? Who built this? The Wadiyars got the entire thing done. You know what is this? Wadiyara Mantapa, you just go to Shravanbagala and you come out. Shravanbagala Jain Mutt was in acute financial crisis. They were about to take loans. The Wadiyars of Mysore bailed out the mutt from their loans and they installed an inscription, and this inscription within a Mantapa tells that. That is the history of Jainism here. So these are all the kind of things I just want to tell you. I mean, this is a very unique idol, very, very unique. 11, 11, 11, 11, this was my, one friend discovered it, this was my interpretation. It is a beast chobis idol. So these are all the kind of things what you find in Karnataka. I mean, I know time was short, but I just want to give you a glimpse of Jainism in Karnataka. But one thing, there's one misinterpretation, which couple of misinterpretations I just want to clarify. No Manastamba will have an Yaksha or Yakshi in the top. It will always have a Tirthankara in the top. Where will you have a Yaksha or a Yakshi? Means to say Brahma Yaksha will be there only in front of a Kamba, in front of a Bahubali idol, not otherwise. That is something we should keep in mind. Because these are all some of the misinterpretations. Many well-known scholars of Jainism have made that mistakes, but we as the researchers, we should not be making that mistake. Just want to clarify on that. With this, I know I had to run through, but I hope I've tried to give you a glimpse of Jainism in Karnataka. Thank you for the wonderful opportunity. Jai Jinendra.